Chapter 1. The Call. David Dunbar was reviewing surveillance footage from a corporate espionage case when his phone shattered the silence of his office. The number belonged to Mercy General Hospital. Mr. Dunbar? This is Mercy General. Your daughter Katie was brought in by ambulance 20 minutes ago. You need to come immediately. The words hit him like a physical blow. Katie, his 15-year-old daughter, his entire world. What happened? Is she? She's in intensive care. Please come now. David's hands trembled as he grabbed his keys. For 12 years, he'd been one of Chicago's most successful private investigators, the guy people called when they needed answers nobody else could find. He'd tracked down murderers, exposed corruption, dismantled criminal networks. But nothing in his dangerous career had ever terrified him like this moment. He'd been a cop once, a detective with a bright future, until he'd made the mistake of marrying Gloria Lowe. She'd been beautiful, charming, and utterly toxic. Their marriage had lasted 6 years. 6 years of her manipulation, her affairs, her lies. The divorce 3 years ago had been brutal. Gloria had fought for full custody of Katie, painting David as a workaholic who cared more about cases than his family. The judge had seen through her performance, granting David primary custody. Gloria had been furious. She'd remarried quickly to some corporate executive named Nicholas McBride, a man David had never met, but instantly distrusted based on Katie's uncomfortable silence whenever his name came up. David's relationship with Katie was the one pure thing in his life. Every other weekend when she stayed with Gloria and Nicholas, David counted the hours until she came home. They had breakfast together every morning, talked about everything from homework to her dreams of becoming a veterinarian. She was smart, funny, kind, everything good he'd ever done in this world. Now she was in intensive care, and he didn't know why. David's Jeep tore through the Chicago streets, his investigator's mind already working. Katie had been fine when he dropped her at school that morning. She'd laughed at his terrible joke about her math test, kissed his cheek, and promised to text him after volleyball practice. What the hell had happened in 8 hours? He burst through the hospital's emergency entrance, flashing his ID to the security guard. Katie Dunbar. I see you. Where? 4th floor. But sir, you need to. David was already running. He took the stairs 3 at a time, his heart hammering against his ribs. The antiseptic smell of the hospital brought back memories of his father's death, of sitting vigil in rooms just like these. He couldn't lose Katie. He wouldn't survive it. The ICU floor was a maze of curtained rooms and beeping machines. David approached the nurse's station, where a tired-looking woman with graying hair looked up. Katie Dunbar. I'm her father. The nurse's expression shifted to sympathy. Room 437. Dr. Vance is with her now. Mr. Dunbar, I need to prepare you. Just tell me she's alive. She's alive. But her condition is critical. We're running tests to determine what caused her collapse. Collapse. The word felt wrong. Katie was healthy, athletic. She didn't just collapse. David moved toward room 437, but the nurse called after him. Mr. Dunbar? Your wife is already here. She arrived about 10 minutes ago with her husband. Gloria. Of course she was here. Probably already positioning herself as the grieving mother, the one who cared while David was off, working. He steeled himself and pushed through the door. Katie looked impossibly small in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped and hummed. Her face was pale, her breathing shallow. Gloria stood on one side of the bed, perfectly styled even in crisis, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. Beside her stood a man David recognized from Katie's uncomfortable descriptions. Nicholas McBride, tall and distinguished with silver hair and cold eyes. David, Gloria said, her voice dripping with false warmth. Thank God you're here. David ignored her, moving to Katie's other side and taking her hand. It was cold. Too cold. What happened? They don't know yet, Nicholas said, his voice smooth and controlled. She collapsed during volleyball practice. They're running tests. David studied his daughter's face, his trained eye-catching details. The slight discoloration around her lips. The way her breathing seemed labored. The unusual readings on the monitors. This wasn't a simple collapse. This was something else entirely. Chapter 2. Shadows of Doubt. David refused to leave Katie's side as the hours crawled by. Dr. Joel Vance, a competent-looking man in his 40s, ran test after test, his expression growing increasingly troubled. We're seeing elevated levels of certain compounds in her blood, Dr. Vance explained during his third update. It's presenting like an overdose, but Katie has no history of drug use, correct? None, David said firmly. She's a straight-A student. Athlete. She won't even take Tylenol without asking first. Gloria shifted uncomfortably. Teenagers hide things, David. Maybe she was experimenting. She wasn't. David's voice could have cut glass. He knew his daughter. Whatever was in her system, she hadn't put it there willingly. Gloria and Nicholas left around midnight. Gloria making a show of kissing Katie's forehead. We'll be back first thing in the morning, she announced. Nicholas has an important meeting, but family comes first. David watched them go, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. He'd investigated criminals for over a decade. He knew deception when he saw it, and Gloria was performing. The tears were fake. The concern was manufactured. And Nicholas, that bastard, had barely looked at Katie, checking his watch 3 times during their visit. When they were gone, David pulled out his phone and started digging. Nicholas McBride, corporate executive. But which company? Doing what? It took him 20 minutes to find it. McBride was CFO of Vertex Pharmaceuticals, a mid-sized drug manufacturer that had been making headlines recently for their new cardiac medication. David's fingers flew across the screen, pulling up article after article. Vertex had been accused of falsifying clinical trial data. The FDA was investigating. If the allegations proved true, the company faced massive fines and criminal charges. Nicholas would be right in the crosshairs. David sat back, his mind working. Katie's symptoms. The elevated compounds in her blood. Nicholas's access to pharmaceutical products. No, it was too insane. Even Gloria, for all her faults, wouldn't hurt their daughter. Would she? He thought back to their marriage, to the woman he'd gradually discovered behind the beautiful facade. Gloria had always been about winning, about getting what she wanted no matter the cost. During the divorce, she tried to turn Katie against him with lies. When that failed, she'd attempted to drain their joint accounts. When he'd blocked that, she'd spread rumors that cost him clients. Gloria didn't lose gracefully, and when she'd lost custody of Katie, she'd looked at David with pure hatred in her eyes. You'll regret this, she'd said. At the time, he'd thought it was just bitter words from a defeated woman. Now, watching his daughter fight for her life, he wondered if it had been a promise. A knock on the door interrupted his dark thoughts. A nurse entered, young, with kind eyes and nervous energy. Her name tag read Sarah Gilmore. Mr. Dunbar? I need to check Katie's vitals. David nodded, watching as Sarah worked efficiently around the bed. She seemed competent, but there was something else, and tension in the way she kept glancing at the door, the way her hands trembled slightly. How long have you worked here? David asked quietly. 3 years. I've been in ICU for 18 months. She checked the 4-line, her movements quick and practiced. Then, as she leaned over to adjust Katie's pillow, she whispered so softly David almost missed it, "Don't trust Dr. Vance." David's head snapped up, but Sarah was already stepping back, her professional mask firmly in place. Everything looks stable. Dr. Vance will be back in the morning with more test results. She left before David could respond, but her words echoed in his mind. Don't trust Dr. Vance. The night stretched on. David dozed in the uncomfortable chair beside Katie's bed, his hand wrapped around hers. He dreamed of the day she was born, of holding that tiny perfect human and promising to always protect her. He was failing that promise now. At 3 a.m., Katie's monitors began beeping urgently. David jolted awake as Sarah rushed in with another nurse. Katie was convulsing, her body rigid. She's seizing, Sarah shouted. Get Dr. Vance. The next 10 minutes were chaos. Medical staff swarmed the room. David was pushed back against the wall, helpless, as they fought to stabilize his daughter. Dr. Vance appeared, barking orders, and gradually the seizure subsided. When the room cleared, David was shaking with rage and fear. Sarah lingered, checking the monitors one more time. She glanced at the door, then quickly scribbled something on a piece of paper and pressed it into David's hand. Don't let anyone see this, she whispered, then left quickly. David waited until he was alone, then unfolded the paper. The message was brief but chilling. Katie's being poisoned. They're in on it. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Trust me. David stared at the words, his blood turning to ice. They're in on it. Who? Gloria? Nicholas? Dr. Vance. He looked at his daughter, so fragile in that hospital bed, and felt something inside him shift. Someone was trying to kill his little girl. Someone thought they could hurt his family and get away with it. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Chapter 3. Blood in the Water. David spent the next day playing the worried father while his investigator's mind worked overtime. He called his most trusted contact, a former partner from his police days named Gordon Boyle, who now worked in forensics. Gordon, I need a favor. Discreet. Urgent. What's going on, David? I need you to run a private tox screen on blood samples. Katie's in the hospital, and I think someone's poisoning her. There was a pause. Jesus, David. Are you sure? I'm sure. The hospital is running tests, but I don't trust their results. Can you do it? I'll need the samples. I'll get them to you. When Sarah's shift started at 7 p.m., David was ready. She slipped into Katie's room, her face tight with stress. We don't have much time, she said quietly. Your wife and her husband, they've been asking about Katie's treatment schedule. They want to know when she'll be alone. Tell me everything, David demanded. Sarah glanced at the door, then spoke quickly. 3 days ago, Dr. Vance approached me about a special case. It said he was helping a colleague with a research project, needed me to administer a new medication to a patient through their four. The patient was Katie. He said it was experimental but safe, that you'd signed off on it. I never signed anything. I realized that yesterday when I checked the charts. There's no consent form. Nothing. I started digging and found out Dr. Vance has a financial connection to Vertex Pharmaceuticals. He's been consulting for them. The pieces clicked together in David's mind. Nicholas McBride, CFO of Vertex. Dr. Vance, consultant for Vertex. His daughter, mysteriously ill. What's he been giving her? I don't know the exact compound, but it's designed to cause organ failure that looks natural. Cardiac arrest? Possibly. Once she's gone, they do an autopsy, find nothing suspicious, just a tragic heart defect nobody knew about. David's hands clenched into fists. They're planning to kill her tonight, aren't they? That's why you told me to trust you. Sarah nodded. Gloria and Nicholas are coming at 9 p.m. I overheard them talking yesterday. They said something about finishing this and making sure there were no complications. I think they're going to give her a final dose. Why are you helping me? Sarah's eyes were fierce. Because I became a nurse to save lives, not to watch some doctor murder a 15-year-old girl for money. And because I lost my younger brother to a drunk driver when he was Katie's age. I won't let her die if I can stop it. David felt a surge of gratitude for this brave woman who was risking her career, maybe her life, to help his daughter. What's the plan? At 8:45, I'm going to move Katie to a different room. Tell them it's for better monitoring. You need to hide and watch what happens when Gloria and Nicholas show up. Record everything. Then we call the police. And Dr. Vance. I've already collected evidence of his connection to Vertex and copies of the medication orders. It's not enough to convict him yet, but it's a start. David's mind was already 3 steps ahead. Evidence. Documentation. He'd need more than recordings and Sarah's testimony. He needed them to incriminate themselves completely. Change of plans, he said. Move Katie like you said, but don't call the police yet. I need them to make their move. I need proof that'll hold up in court and destroy them. Sarah looked uncertain. That's risky. I know what I'm doing. Just trust me. At 8:45 p.m., Sarah efficiently moved Katie to room 441, a larger ICU room with better monitoring equipment. David helped, his heart aching at how small and vulnerable his daughter looked. She hadn't woken up since the seizure, trapped in some chemical coma these bastards had induced. Where should I hide? David asked. Sarah pointed to a supply closet adjacent to room 437, Katie's old room. You'll be able to see through the window. The blinds are partially open. David positioned himself in the closet at 8:50 p.m., his phone ready to record. The minutes crawled by like hours. At 8:57, the elevator doors opened. Gloria stepped out first, followed by Nicholas. They moved with purpose, not the hesitant steps of worried family members. Gloria checked her watch, smoothed her hair. Nicholas carried a small bag. They approached room 437. Tried the door. Found it empty. Where is she? Gloria hissed. Nicholas checked his phone. Vance said she'd be here. He was supposed to make sure. Find her. Now. They split up, checking rooms. David's heart pounded as Gloria walked right past his hiding spot. Through his phone, he captured every movement, every word. Sarah appeared at the nurse's station, her performance perfect. "Can I help you?" "Our daughter," Gloria said, her voice honey-sweet. "Katie Dunbar. She's not in her room." "Oh, we moved her to 441 for better monitoring." "Are you family?" "I'm her mother." "Of course. This way." Sarah led them to the new room. David waited 30 seconds, then slipped out of the closet and positioned himself in the darkened room next to Katie's. The door was cracked just enough for him to see and hear everything. Gloria and Nicholas entered Katie's room. Sarah made a show of checking the monitors. "Everything's stable. Dr. Vance will be by shortly. We'd like some privacy with our daughter," Nicholas said coldly. Sarah hesitated, then nodded. "Of course. Press the call button if you need anything." She left, and David watched as his ex-wife and her husband approached his unconscious daughter. The mask slipped. Gloria's fake concern vanished, replaced by cold calculation. Nicholas pulled a syringe from his bag. "Let's make this quick," he said. "Wait." Gloria's voice was sharp. "You're sure this is untraceable?" "Completely. Vance designed it specifically for this. Potassium chloride mixed with the compound we've been using. It'll stop her heart in minutes. The autopsy will show cardiac arrest, consistent with the organ stress from her mystery illness. No one will question it." David's blood ran cold. They were discussing murdering his daughter with the casual tone of people ordering coffee. Gloria looked down at Katie, and for just a moment, David thought he saw something human cross her face. Regret? Doubt. Then it was gone. "Do it," she said. "The insurance money will cover our legal fees for the Vertex investigation, and with David destroyed by grief, he won't be a problem anymore. We win." Nicholas moved toward Katie's foreline. David stepped into the room. "You're not going to touch her." Chapter 4. The game begins. Gloria's face went white. Nicholas froze, the syringe in his hand catching the harsh fluorescent light. "David," Gloria stammered. "What are you? We were just about to murder our daughter?" David's voice was deadly calm, the same tone he'd used when interrogating suspects in his cop days. "I heard everything. I saw everything. And I recorded it all." He held up his phone, the red recording light clearly visible. Nicholas's expression shifted from shock to calculation. "That's inadmissible. You can't prove." "Can't I?" David stepped closer, positioning himself between them and Katie. "I have you on video carrying a syringe into a hospital room. I have you discussing potassium chloride and untraceable compounds. I have you confessing to poisoning Katie over the past 3 days. I have more than enough to bury you both." Gloria recovered her composure with frightening speed. "You have an illegal recording that won't hold up in court. And who's going to believe you? The obsessive ex-husband who couldn't let go of his failed marriage? We came to visit our sick daughter, and you're making insane accusations." "That might work," David agreed. "If I didn't also have Sarah Gilmore's testimony about Dr. Vance's illegal medication orders. If I didn't have evidence of Nicholas's connection to Vertex Pharmaceuticals and the illegal clinical trials. If I didn't have documentation of every suspicious financial transaction you two have made in the past month." That last part was a bluff. He hadn't had time to dig that deep yet. But the flash of panic in Nicholas's eyes told him he'd struck gold. "You've been investigating us?" Nicholas demanded. "I'm a private investigator. It's what I do." David pulled out his second phone and hit send on a pre-written message. "And right now, everything I've collected is being delivered to Gordon Boyle, my contact in forensics, along with the private tox screen results on Katie's blood showing exactly what you've been poisoning her with." Another bluff. Gordon was still running the tests. But David had learned long ago that criminals made mistakes when they panicked. Nicholas grabbed Gloria's arm. "We're leaving. Now." "I don't think so." David blocked the door. "Hospital security is on their way. So are the police. Sarah called them the moment you walked in with that syringe." That part was true. Sarah had promised to give him 5 minutes to confront them before calling 911. Gloria's mask cracked completely. The beautiful, composed woman disappeared, replaced by something ugly and desperate. "You self-righteous bastard. You think you're so smart, so perfect. You took everything from me, my daughter, my life. I took nothing. The court gave me custody because you're a toxic narcissist who cares more about winning than Katie's well-being. And now you've proven them right by trying to murder your own child. She was supposed to be mine." Gloria shrieked. "You had no right. No right to take her from me. So I made a plan. Nicholas and I, we would make you suffer. Watch your precious daughter die. Then, when you were broken and grieving, we'd take everything else. Your business, your reputation, your life. Why involve Katie at all? If you wanted revenge on me, come after me. Nicholas laughed, cold and bitter. Because that wouldn't hurt enough. Gloria wanted you to feel what she felt. Powerless, losing the thing you loved most. And I needed the insurance money to cover the legal fees from the Vertex investigation. When the FDA raids us next month, I'll need millions for lawyers. Katie's life insurance policy, the one you stupidly keep Gloria as beneficiary on, that's $2 million. David felt sick. His daughter's life, reduced to a financial transaction and a revenge plot. The sound of running feet echoed in the hallway. Security guards appeared, followed by 2 uniformed police officers. Sarah was with them, her face pale but determined. These are the 2 I told you about, she said. They were attempting to inject the patient with an unknown substance. One officer moved to take the syringe from Nicholas. He dropped it, the glass shattering on the floor. Evidence destroyed. Oops, Nicholas said with a smirk. Clumsy of me. But David was smarter than that. He'd learned from years of cases that criminals always tried to destroy evidence. He pulled out a sealed bag from his jacket. Inside was another syringe, identical to the one Nicholas had carried. Funny thing, David said. When Sarah told me about your plan, I had her intercept your original syringe yesterday. Switched it with saline. The one you just broke? That was harmless. The one I have here? That's the real poison, complete with your fingerprints, ready for testing. Nicholas's face went purple with rage. You son of a... Officers, I have video evidence of these 2 discussing their plan to murder my daughter, along with testimony from Nurse Gilmore about their co-conspirator, Dr. Joel Vance. I have documentation of the illegal medication administered to Katie over the past 3 days. And I have the murder weapon right here. The officers moved quickly, handcuffing both Gloria and Nicholas. Gloria was screaming now, incoherent with rage and denial. Nicholas stayed silent, but David could see the fear in his eyes. The calculation. He was already thinking about lawyers, about deals, about how to minimize the damage. He wouldn't succeed. David would make sure of it. As they were led away, Gloria turned back one last time. I'll get out. I'll find a way. And when I do, you'll do nothing, David said quietly. Because I'm not done with you yet. This is just the beginning. When they were gone, David collapsed into the chair beside Katie's bed, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Sarah approached, putting a gentle hand on his shoulder. You did it. You saved her. We saved her, David corrected. Thank you, Sarah. For everything. What happens now? David looked at his daughter, still unconscious but alive. Still breathing. Still his. Now I make sure they never hurt anyone again. And I find every person who helped them. Chapter 5. Unraveling the Web. Dr. Joel Vance was arrested at his home at 6 a.m. the next morning. David watched from his Jeep as the FBI, called in due to the pharmaceutical fraud connection, led the doctor out in handcuffs. Vance's wife stood in the doorway, crying and confused. David felt no sympathy. Vance had nearly killed his daughter for money. Katie was still unconscious, but her vital signs had stabilized once Sarah had stopped the poison for drip and started her on chelation therapy to remove the compounds from her system. Gordon's preliminary tox screen had identified the main toxin, a derivative of a Vertex experimental cardiac drug, modified to cause organ failure that would mimic natural causes. Brilliant. Diabolical. And now thoroughly documented. David spent the next 48 hours doing what he did best, investigating. He pulled financial records, tracked communications, interviewed hospital staff. The picture that emerged was even darker than he'd imagined. Nicholas McBride wasn't just trying to cover legal fees. He was desperate. The Vertex scandal was worse than public reports suggested. The company had falsified data on their cardiac drug, and early trial participants had died. Nicholas, as CFO, had signed off on reports he knew were fraudulent. He was facing criminal charges that could mean decades in prison. Gloria had been his eager accomplice. She'd reconnected with Nicholas at a charity event 2 years ago, months before her divorce from David was final. They'd bonded over their mutual hatred of people who they felt had wronged them. David, the FDA investigators, anyone who stood in their way. When Nicholas proposed marriage, he'd also proposed a solution to both their problems. Kill Katie, frame it as a tragedy, collect the insurance money, and destroy David emotionally in the process. Gloria had agreed enthusiastically. They'd spent 6 months planning, finding Dr. Vance, who had gambling debts and was willing to compromise his ethics for $200,000, researching the compounds, setting up the accident that would land Katie in the hospital. They'd arranged for her to receive a tainted energy drink after volleyball practice, the same Vertex cardiac stimulant that would begin the poisoning process. It was methodical, patient, evil. David compiled everything into a comprehensive file that would bury them all. But he wanted more. He wanted them to understand the full weight of their betrayal. He wanted their downfall to be as complete and devastating as they'd intended his to be. On the third day, Katie woke up. David was beside her instantly, holding her hand, tears streaming down his face. "Hey, sweetheart. Welcome back." Katie's voice was weak, confused. "Dad? What happened? You were sick, but you're going to be okay now. I promise." She squeezed his hand. "I had the strangest dreams. Mom was here, but she was different. Scary." David's jaw tightened. How did he tell his daughter that her mother had tried to kill her? "Just rest now. We'll talk when you're stronger." Over the next week, as Katie recovered, David wrestled with that question. Sarah, who had become a trusted ally and friend, helped him navigate it. "She needs to know the truth eventually," Sarah said. "But maybe not all at once. And maybe not right now. She'll hate me for keeping it from her. She'll understand that you were protecting her. That's what good fathers do." Katie was transferred out of ICU on day 8. Her cognitive functions were returning to normal, though she was still weak. The doctors were amazed at her recovery, unaware that they'd been treating poisoning rather than a mysterious illness. David sat with her, watching some mindless TV show she loved, when his phone buzzed. A message from his lawyer, Bradley Lowe. Gloria's attorney is pushing for bail. They're arguing she's not a flight risk because of her love for her daughter. Hearing tomorrow at 2 p.m. David's blood boiled. Love for her daughter. The woman who'd tried to murder Katie was invoking maternal love to get out of jail. Not on his watch. He spent that night preparing. He gathered every piece of evidence, every testimony, every record. He contacted the FBI agents handling the Vertex case, sharing everything he'd found about Nicholas's involvement. He spoke with the prosecutor, a sharp woman named Gail Mullen who'd built her career on putting away white-collar criminals. "This is airtight," Gail said, reviewing his files. "You did my job for me, Mr. Dunbar. I want them to spend the rest of their lives in prison. Both of them. With what you've given me, I can make that happen. But Dunbar, you need to let the system work now. No vigilante justice. No private revenge plots. I know your background, and I know what you're capable of. Stay clean on this." David nodded, but his mind was already working on something else. Something that would hurt Gloria and Nicholas more than prison time. He was going to destroy their reputations. Expose them publicly. Make sure the whole world knew what they'd done. The bail hearing the next day was packed. Media had gotten wind of the case. Wealthy CFO and ex-wife accused of attempting to murder a teenager for insurance money. It was salacious, shocking, perfect for headlines. David sat in the front row, making sure Gloria could see him. She looked terrible, her usually perfect hair limp, her designer clothes replaced by a prison jumpsuit. When she saw him, something flickered in her eyes. Fear. Gloria's lawyer, a slick corporate attorney named Herbert Burton, made his case. "Your Honor, my client is a devoted mother who would never harm her child. These accusations are based on circumstantial evidence and the vindictive testimony of an ex-husband who couldn't move on from their failed marriage." Gail Mullen stood. "Your Honor, I'd like to present video evidence obtained by Mr. Dunbar on the night in question." The video played on the courtroom screens. Gloria and Nicholas discussing the murder in chilling detail. The syringe. The plan. The casual cruelty of their words. When it ended, the courtroom was silent. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Ryan, looked at Gloria with open disgust. "Bail denied. You'll remain in custody until trial." Gloria's scream echoed through the courtroom. "You can't do this. I have rights. David, you bastard, you'll pay for this." As she was led away, David felt a grim satisfaction. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. Chapter 6. The Trap Springs. Katie was released from the hospital 2 weeks after she'd been admitted. David took her home to their apartment, where he'd prepared her favorite meal and decorated her room with flowers from her friends at school. She was quieter than before, more fragile. The doctors said the psychological trauma would take time to heal. David had arranged for therapy sessions, but he knew the deeper question, how to tell her about Gloria, was still looming. That evening, as they sat together watching the sunset from their balcony, Katie finally asked, "Dad, why did I get sick? The doctors keep saying it was a mystery illness, but I don't think that's true, is it?" David took a deep breath. He'd prepared for this moment, practiced what he'd say. But looking at his daughter's trusting eyes, the prepared speech died in his throat. "No, honey, it's not true." "Then what happened?" He told her. Not everything. He spared her the most brutal details. But he told her enough. That Gloria and Nicholas had poisoned her. That they'd planned to kill her. That Sarah and he had stopped them. Katie's reaction was worse than he'd feared. She didn't cry or scream. She just sat there, silent and small, processing the knowledge that her mother had tried to murder her. "Why?" she finally whispered. "Because your mother is sick, Katie. Not physically, but mentally. She's incapable of love the way normal people are. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't protect you from her sooner." Katie leaned into him, and finally the tears came. David held his daughter while she grieved for the mother she'd thought she had, the family she'd thought was broken but salvageable. He held her while she processed the ultimate betrayal. "I hate her," Katie said finally. "That's okay. You're allowed to hate her." "Do you?" David considered the question. "I pity her. She's destroyed her own life because she couldn't accept losing. But yes, part of me hates her too, for what she tried to do to you." They sat together until the sun set completely, leaving them in darkness lit only by the city lights below. The next day, David got a call from Gail Mullen. "We have a problem. Nicholas McBride is trying to cut a deal. He's offering to testify against Gloria in exchange for a reduced sentence." "Absolutely not. It's not your decision, Dunbar. If he gives us Gloria on first-degree attempted murder, we might have to take it. He's equally guilty. He planned this with her." "I know. But the way the evidence is structured, his lawyer is arguing he was coerced by Gloria, that she manipulated him. It's bullshit, but it might work." David hung up, fury coursing through him. Nicholas was trying to play the victim, to sacrifice Gloria and save himself. It was exactly the kind of cowardly move he'd expect. But David wasn't going to let it happen. He called in every favor he had. Gordon ran additional forensic analysis on the evidence. Sarah provided detailed testimony about Nicholas's specific involvement in the poisoning. David dug deeper into Nicholas's background, finding a pattern of manipulation and abuse in his previous relationships. Most damaging of all, David discovered Nicholas's mistress. Her name was Lana Green, a pharmaceutical sales rep who'd been sleeping with Nicholas for the past year. She'd known about the plan to kill Katie. Nicholas had told her during pillow talk, bragging about how clever he was. She'd thought it was fantasy, dark talk that would never happen. When David showed her the evidence that it had happened, that Nicholas had actually tried to murder a teenage girl, Lana broke down. And then she agreed to testify. David brought everything to Gail. "This destroys Nicholas's defense. He can't claim Gloria manipulated him when he was independently bragging about the plan to his mistress. He can't play the victim when there's a pattern of him being the predator." Gail smiled. "You're good at this." "I'm motivated." The trial date was set for 6 weeks later. In the meantime, David worked on the second phase of his plan, public destruction. He contacted investigative journalists, feeding them information about the Vertex scandal and Nicholas's role in it. He connected them with families of the clinical trial victims, people who'd lost loved ones because Nicholas had falsified safety data. The stories started running. Major outlets picked them up. Nicholas McBride became the face of corporate greed and corruption. His name was dragged through every media platform, associated with death and fraud. Gloria's reputation suffered similarly. David made sure reporters had access to her history, the affairs during their marriage, the custody battle where she'd lied under oath, the financial schemes. He painted a picture of a woman consumed by narcissism and rage. By the time the trial started, they were both pariahs. The trial itself was a media circus. David sat in the courtroom every day, Katie beside him when she felt strong enough to attend. He wanted Gloria and Nicholas to see them, alive, together, strong. Gail Mullen was devastating. She presented the video evidence, the forensic analysis, Sarah's testimony. She brought in Lana Green, who testified tearfully about Nicholas's plans. She showed the financial records, the communication logs, the trail of evidence that proved premeditation and conspiracy. Gloria's attorney tried to argue temporary insanity. Nicholas's lawyer claimed he'd been coerced. Neither strategy held up against the mountain of evidence David and Gail had assembled. On day 12 of the trial, the jury deliberated for just 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. Attempted murder. Conspiracy. Fraud. Gloria screamed. Nicholas sat in stunned silence. Sentencing came 2 weeks later. The judge showed no mercy. You conspired to murder an innocent child for financial gain and petty revenge, she said. You betrayed every bond of trust and decency. Gloria Lowe, I sentence you to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Nicholas McBride, I sentence you to 45 years in prison without the possibility of parole. David felt Katie's hand squeeze his. It was over, but he wasn't done yet. Chapter 7, Scorched Earth. After the sentencing, David stood outside the courthouse with Katie, facing a wall of reporters. Gail Mullen had advised him to say nothing, to let the verdict speak for itself. But David had something to say. My daughter nearly died because 2 people valued money more than life, he began, his voice steady and strong. Because my ex-wife couldn't accept that our marriage was over. Because Nicholas McBride thought he could commit fraud and murder to cover his crimes. They failed. Justice has been served. But this isn't just about them. He looked directly at the cameras. This is about accountability. Gloria and Nicholas worked with Dr. Joel Vance, who betrayed his Hippocratic oath for money. They exploited a system that should protect patients. They relied on the assumption that nobody would notice, nobody would care, nobody would fight back. Katie stepped forward, her young voice clear and brave. I'm Katie Dunbar. I'm the girl they tried to kill. And I want everyone who's watching to know, if my dad hadn't fought for me, if Nurse Sarah Gilmore hadn't been brave enough to tell the truth, I'd be dead. Check on the people you love. Question things that don't make sense. Fight for each other. The reporters erupted with questions, but David led Katie away. They'd said what needed to be said. Over the next month, the fallout continued. Dr. Vance pled guilty to attempted murder and multiple counts of medical fraud, receiving a 20-year sentence. The hospital where he'd worked faced massive lawsuits and instituted new oversight policies. Sarah Gilmore was recognized for her bravery and promoted to head nurse of the ICU. Vertex Pharmaceuticals collapsed. The FDA investigation, bolstered by the evidence David had uncovered about Nicholas's fraud, resulted in criminal charges against the entire executive team. The company filed for bankruptcy, its reputation destroyed. Families of the clinical trial victims filed wrongful death suits. David helped them, providing evidence and connections, working for free because it was the right thing to do. But he saved his cruelest revenge for last. Gloria had always cared about appearances, about status, about being seen as successful and desirable. So David made sure everyone knew exactly who she was. He compiled a detailed timeline of her life. Every lie, every betrayal, every manipulation. He documented her affairs, her financial schemes, her attempts to turn Katie against him during the divorce. He included psychological evaluations that painted her as a malignant narcissist incapable of empathy. Then he published it all on a website dedicated to her crimes. He titled it The Real Gloria Lowe, a case study in narcissistic evil. The site went viral. Millions of people read about Gloria's fall from grace. Her family disowned her. Her friends abandoned her. The society pages that once fawned over her now published editorials condemning her. In prison, Gloria was just another inmate. No special treatment, no admirers, no power. Just 40 years of obscurity and shame. Nicholas suffered similarly. His professional reputation was annihilated. The business community blacklisted him. His previous wives came forward with stories of his abuse and manipulation. His children from his first marriage publicly denounced him. The man who'd thought himself untouchable was revealed as a coward and a fraud. David felt no guilt about these public destructions. These people had tried to murder his daughter. They deserved to have their true natures exposed. 3 months after the trial, David and Katie sat in their lawyer's office. Bradley Lowe had news about the civil suits David had filed against Gloria, Nicholas, and Dr. Vance. The judgments came through, Bradley said. Combined total, $18 million in damages and punitive awards. Katie gasped. $18 million? They'll never pay it all, Bradley explained. Most of their assets have been seized for victim restitution and legal fees. But what's left will go to you for college, medical bills, therapy, whatever you need. David nodded. He didn't care about the money, but he cared that Gloria and Nicholas had nothing left. Every dollar, every asset, every bit of security they'd had was gone. As they left the office, Katie turned to her father. Dad, is it really over? David looked at his daughter, stronger now, healing, but forever changed by what had happened. The legal stuff is over. The recovery, that's going to take time. I'm still angry. That's okay. You're allowed to be angry. Will it ever stop hurting? David pulled her into a hug. I don't know, sweetheart, but I promise you this. You're safe now. You're loved. And I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt that again. Chapter 8. Broken Crown. 6 months after the trial, David received a letter from prison. The return address was Gloria's. He almost threw it away. Almost. But curiosity got the better of him. The letter was 3 pages of Gloria's handwriting, once elegant and precise, now shaky and desperate. David, I know you'll probably tear this up without reading it. I wouldn't blame you. But I need you to know some things before I lose whatever sanity I have left. I didn't mean for it to go so far. That's what I tell myself every night in this cell. We were just going to scare you, make you suffer the way you made me suffer when you took Katie from me. But then Nicholas kept pushing, kept saying we could solve all our problems, and I listened. I wanted to win so badly that I forgot she was my daughter. I see her face every time I close my eyes. Not the teenage girl she is now, but the baby I held when she was born. The toddler who called me mommy and thought I was the whole world. I destroyed that. I destroyed her. I destroyed us. You were right about me. I am sick. The prison psychologist says I have narcissistic personality disorder, that I need intensive therapy. As if a diagnosis excuses what I did. It doesn't. Nothing does. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I'm not asking you to visit or write back. I just need you to tell Katie something for me. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I was a terrible mother. I'm sorry I chose my ego over her life. I'm sorry she has to live with the trauma of what I did. And I'm sorry to you too, David. You were a good husband, a good father. You deserved better than me. Katie deserves better than me. I have 40 years to think about what I've done. 40 years to understand that I threw away everything that mattered for revenge that meant nothing. I'll die in here, alone and hated. That's my punishment. But please tell Katie she deserved a better mother. Gloria. David read the letter twice, then set it aside. He'd expected rage, blame, continued manipulation. This apparent self-awareness was almost harder to process. He showed the letter to Katie, who was now seeing a therapist twice a week and doing much better. She read it silently, her expression unreadable. What do you think? David asked. Katie folded the letter carefully. I think she's sorry she got caught. Sorry her plan failed. Sorry she's in prison. I don't think she's sorry for what she is. David felt a swell of pride at his daughter's insight. You're probably right. She says she sees my baby face. But that's the problem, isn't it? She only loved the version of me she could control. When I grew up and had my own thoughts and chose you in the custody case, she stopped seeing me as a person. I was just a thing she'd lost to you. Very perceptive. Katie looked at her father. I don't forgive her. I don't think I ever will. But I also don't want to spend the rest of my life hating her. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. So I'm going to let her go? Not forgive, not forget, but release her from my life. She's in prison, and that's where she'll stay. I have my whole life ahead of me, and I don't want her to poison any more of it. David hugged his daughter, marveling at her strength. At 15, she had more wisdom than most adults. A week later, David received another letter. This one from Nicholas. It was shorter, angrier. Dunbar, you think you've won, but you've just made yourself a target. I have friends on the outside, people who owe me favors. When I get out, and I will get out, appeals are pending. I'm coming for you. I'll make you watch Katie die slowly this time. I'll make sure you suffer. You crossed the wrong man. McBride. David read the letter, then immediately forwarded it to Gail Mullen and prison authorities. Nicholas was threatening him in writing, a clear violation that would add time to his sentence and ensure he was flagged as a dangerous inmate. Stupid. Desperate. Exactly the kind of impulsive mistake David had counted on Nicholas making eventually. 3 days later, David got a call from Gail. Nicholas was moved to maximum security and put in solitary confinement for the threatening letter. He also lost his appeal rights due to his behavior. He's not getting out early. Ever. Good. There's more. We found evidence he's been trying to coordinate attacks on witnesses from prison. He attempted to have a hit put on Sarah Gilmore. David's blood turned to ice. Is she safe? FBI has her in protective custody until they round up Nicholas's associates. But Dunbar, you need protection too. You and Katie both. David had anticipated this. He'd been prepared for retaliation since the trial ended. I can handle myself. But Katie, we'll assign a protection detail. And we're adding conspiracy to commit murder charges against Nicholas. This idiot just added another life sentence to his prison time. Nicholas McBride's final gambit had failed. His threats had only ensured he'd never see freedom again. He'd spend the rest of his life in a concrete box, isolated and impotent, exactly as he deserved. Chapter 9, New Dawn. 1 year after Katie's poisoning, David stood in the backyard of their new house, a place with better security and a fresh start. Katie was throwing a small party with her friends from school, her laughter echoing across the lawn. She'd grown her hair long again, returned to volleyball, made honor roll. The nightmares still came sometimes, but less frequently. The therapy was working. She was healing. Sarah Gilmore arrived with her boyfriend, a kind man named Troy Bradley who worked in hospital administration. After the FBI protection detail had ended, she and David had stayed in touch, their shared trauma creating a lasting friendship. She looks happy, Sarah observed, watching Katie joke with her friends. She's getting there, David said. We both are. Gordon Boyle showed up with his wife, bearing a cake. Bradley came with his partner. Even Gail Mullen stopped by, though she couldn't stay long. She was prosecuting another pharmaceutical fraud case, and the trial started Monday. As the sun set and the party wound down, Katie found David on the porch. Good day, he asked. Great day? Dad, I wanted to tell you something. What's that? I've been thinking about what I want to study in college. I was going to be a veterinarian, but I think I want to study criminal justice. Maybe become a prosecutor like Ms. Mullen, or an investigator like you. David felt his throat tighten with emotion. You'd be amazing at it. You taught me that the system only works if good people fight to make it work. If people like you and Sarah and Ms. Mullen stand up when it's hard. I want to be someone who stands up. Katie, you already are. She hugged him. I love you, Dad. Thank you for saving me. Thank you for fighting for me. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. I love you too, sweetheart. Always. As Katie rejoined her friends, David received one final call. It was from a corrections officer at the prison where Gloria was housed. Mr. Dunbar? I thought you should know. Gloria Lowe was found unresponsive in her cell this morning. Apparent suicide. She's in critical condition. David felt nothing. No satisfaction, no sadness, no vindication. Just emptiness. Will she survive? Too early to tell. Did you want to be notified of updates? No. Thank you for calling. He hung up and looked at Katie, laughing with her friends, alive and whole and free. Gloria had made her choices. She'd chosen ego over love, revenge over redemption. Whether she lived or died now was irrelevant. She'd already lost everything that mattered. David had won. Not just the legal battle, but something more important. He'd protected his daughter. He'd taught her that justice exists, that good people can defeat evil people, that love is worth fighting for. 3 days later, he learned Gloria had died without regaining consciousness. He told Katie, who cried, not for the woman Gloria was, but for the mother she'd never had. They scattered no flowers at her grave, spoke no words of remembrance. Gloria Lowe had erased herself from their lives, and they let her go. Nicholas McBride remained in maximum security, his threats empty, his power gone. He'd spend the next 45 years watching the world move on without him, forgotten and despised. Dr. Vance served his sentence in general population, where his crimes against a child made him a target. David heard he was attacked twice in the first year. He didn't lose sleep over it. Life moved forward. Katie graduated high school with honors. Got accepted to Northwestern's criminal justice program. Dated, made mistakes, learned, grew. David's investigation business thrived. He specialized in taking down corrupt corporations and protecting families from predators. He became someone parents called when they suspected their children were in danger. He never remarried, dated occasionally, but kept his focus on Katie and his work. Some damage ran too deep for complete healing, and Gloria had broken something in him that couldn't be repaired. But he was content. He'd won the war that mattered. 5 years after the poisoning, Katie graduated from Northwestern. David sat in the audience, watching her walk across the stage, and felt peace. She'd survived. She'd thrived. She'd become someone strong and good and brave. That was his victory. That was his revenge. Not the prison sentences or destroyed reputations or public humiliation of his enemies. But this, his daughter, alive and smiling, ready to make the world better. Gloria and Nicholas had tried to break them. Instead, they'd proven that love, real, fierce, protective love, always wins in the end. David applauded as Katie received her diploma, her future bright and limitless. The nightmare was over. The dawn had come, and they were finally, completely free. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.